right, now broadcasting. Welcome to episode 7 of Myths and Stories. Ztories, with our hosts, Mythborn and Zorialis. And today we're going to talk about, and take it away.
Today we're gonna cover Sheer Ido, the first Queen's Wrath from Marasov and the Awoken people, and she's we talked about her a little bit before when we covered Marasov's story, because you kind of can't not include her when you talk about Marasov, but she has quite the history there, Myth.
Yeah, no, Sheer has has quite the storied life during her time with Mara, as well as some adventures outside of her time with Mara.
Yeah.
Let's say leading up to our current, our Guardian's interactions with her in Forsaken.
Yeah.
Is kind of the culmination of her story thus far. But so in order to tell Sheer's story, we have to walk ourselves back a little bit and tread over some information that we have already gone over once before, back in our introduction to Mara and the Distributary and the Awoken people in general. Not going
one thing to note is she is not Shirochi.
Yes, despite Zor's insistence sometimes that they are the same person, they are in fact not.
There's some disconnect or reconnect in my brain that every time I try to say one of them, I instantly say the other one's name, and vice versa.
So if you hear one, just swap it out with the other.
Yes.
In this
Shirochi is a Techian. She's a completely different person. Not even the same. Well, I guess she's awoken, so she's the same people, but not even the same person or anything. But yeah. So yeah.
All right. So we're gonna start by doing a very brief
stay focused
retelling of history here. So we're going to start back in the Distributary, which is where the Awoken people first were reborn into after being caught in the middle of the battle between light and dark energy during the collapse. And they had been reborn into the Distributary. They were an immortal people. They had been there for untold thousands of years, at the point where Sheer becomes a prominent figure in the lore as we know it. This was just prior to the Theodicy War within the Distributary, which was a very small, by our standards, but still devastating by Awoken standards, war that took place between two factions of different theological ideals. On one side, you had the Sanguine, which were very much of the idea that they, the Awoken, had been granted the Distributary as a gift from the universe, and that they owed no debt for that gift, and that they should just continue to live out whatever their existence was within the Distributary. And then you had the other group, which I am failed to write down. Diaramis, something like that.
We always screw up their name.
The other guys.
Sorry to all the other guys who are Diorama followers. We
if you
don't
want to know
mean
how
to...
it's said, reference back to our previous episode where we got
it
right. I believe it was diarams. Regardless, this other group that was more of the mindset that their time in the distributary was as refugees, and that they needed to, return back to the soul system where they had come from, because they had a debt to the cosmos to help resolve this conflict between dark and light. This difference in ideology essentially eventually led to unrest, which led to actual battles. Shir Ido was on the side of the diorams, and she was second in command, essentially, of that group. And once the war was ended, the leader of that group went missing. Essentially went to go have a visit with Mara, because they were unsatisfied with kind of the resolution of the war, and were never heard from again. And so the assumption was, by people that were in the know, that Mara had most likely murdered the leader of this Diorams group.
Just real quick, I did take the time to go find it. It's we are butchering. It's not. It's DIASYRM.
Diaserum?
Diaserum.
Diaserum. Okay.
Diaserum?
Regardless.
Diaserum?
The D group. Group D. There we go.
Languages are hard.
Especially made up ones.
Right.
So, needless to say, Styr, as the second in command to this group, whose leader has now gone missing and is presumed murdered by Marasov, gets permission from the ruling faction at the time to hunt and take revenge on Mara. So their relationship starts out as one of enemies, of rivals. And the search for Mara takes, I would say, at least a couple hundred years, if not more, before they actually meet up. Because a lot of technological and scientific advancements have been made within that time span, to the point where Mara is now a member of the current queen's court, working on those scientific advancements. And when Styr finds her, she understands that she can't kill Mara, essentially to deprive the Awoken people of the knowledge that Mara has would be too great a cost for revenge. And so instead she challenges her to a duel and says to choose a champion, and she will either kill that champion or maim Mara in some way that is permanent but will not affect her ability to serve the Awoken people. And so, of course, the champion Mara chooses is Aldrin, her brother, who will do literally anything, A, for a challenge, and B, if his sister asks it. So when it's both, it's a guarantee. So he and Styr fight in 3 duels, and it's kind of best of 3 is the winner. Each duel is using a different weapon. The first is, I don't want to say it's with a sword, it's just like hand-to-hand combat.
very much what I would consider like an agility fight or a.
Yeah, they were on. Were they on a tightrope? Is that, am I remembering correctly, or
Yeah.
something
They
along that
were on
lines?
a rope over a. They were on a net, hanging over like a. I think they described it as like a. I can't remember now. But it, basically, if one of them fell off this rope, it was like to their death type thing.
Yeah. So they both say they have the first duel, which was I believe Aldrin won that one. And then they had a duel with bows. The measure of a guardian. And Seer won that one. And that came down to a duel of aerial combat. And Aldrin, being his sneaky self, they said that they got their pick of whatever aerial vehicle they wanted to use, and including the loadout, the standard loadout of that vehicle. And it was not, if an item in that loadout was not something they had or something that they could use, they would simulate it. And Aldrin picked a very rickety old battleship, which sure was very. She almost took it as an insult, like,
Yep.
what? Why are you using this stupid old thing against me when I'm gonna pick when she had already picked the top of the line battle cruiser kind of thing. Come to find, the rickety old battleship he chose had tactical nukes on it as part of its standard loadout.
That always makes me laugh when it's just like, I can win this. I mean, winning is definitely like I guess in any type of battle, winning is a subjective term.
Yeah.
It's like, because there's a line from a Megadeth song that I really like, that could possibly be applied here, and it's the quickest way to end the war is lose, and so like Aldrin's version of winning by simulating setting off this nuke and just not only defeating Sheer, but also killing everything in a 7-mile radius. Like,
right.
I mean, technically, yeah, you won, but
did you really?
Like define win in this scenario? Like, yeah.
So, needless to say, Aldrin wins that battle via simulated nuke. And so he's declared winner of the duels, and Sheer, essentially tells Mara that her fate is Mara's to decide. She's a very honor-bound individual. She is very following, very true to her word kind of individual. And in my head, not her physique per se, but her personality type reminds me a lot of like Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. Just to give kind of a point of comparison.
Yeah.
I
also real quick went through and found the fight. It was a coolant pod of the reactors for the main city. So it was a coolant pod of heavy water, is what it was, and that one was a draw because Aldrin kept cutting away the net, so that way Shiraido would hopefully tumble through or lose her footing. But Sheer countered by diving at him and then completely threw both of them off balance, so they both fell in. So yeah, and then in their second one, it was a test of rifles, and Sheer Ido selected a Tiger's Bite, which I've been using a little bit of Tiger's Bite lately, and these reissued weapons, they're pretty snazzy. They got some.
They've got some good ones, yeah.
They got some good ones, so I'm glad that her Tiger's Bite was able to win that second fight.
But so she has accepted defeat. Has said, Mara, you can choose my fate, expecting to to die. Essentially, she came here with the intention of taking the life of Mara or her loved one, and expected the same in return. And what ends up happening is Mara instead says, "You are now appointed to be my bodyguard, more or less for life." Which, she accepts that role, and she accepts that role to the point where when Mara eventually bands together all the like-minded Awoken to leave the Distributary to come back to the Soul System, and help what's left of humanity after the collapse.
I like the line that Mara uses for Shirado when that defeat does happen, and we call it a defeat. Ultimately, it was a tie because you had the first one was a tie, then the second one Sheer beat Uldren, and the third one Uldren beat Sheer, and so she's sitting in front of Mara, bowing like my fate's in your hands, and Mara just says to her, "Rise, Shirado, let us take the stars together." And so to me, that's automatically signaling the Mara's wanting to return, and to have Shiraido as like. So I personally looked at these duels as like Mara was testing Sheer, like testing her resolve, testing her combat abilities, to actually like for her. I can't say ultimate plan because we still have no idea what the hell Mara's plan is. But her goal, at least in the Distributary, of going back to the Soul System, and to have Sheer as a right hand man, basically.
No, absolutely, and I think that that makes a lot of sense because we know Mara is always like 20 steps ahead whenever she does something.
I'd hate to play chess with her.
Right, and
so
it kind of works because by taking this second in command of this other theological group, we know in at least one instance where Sheer is directly responsible for a member, the kind of the third in command of that same group, also leaving the Distributary. That being Nama, who eventually became Orin. Sheer was very good friends with her, and back when they were like in the Theodicy War, they were kind of that comrade in arms kind of friendship formed, and because of that, she was convinced to leave the Distributary with Sheer, and at which point, she became Orin the Guardian, and then the Emissary, and all of that. So, and we'll find a lot of times, very indirectly, Sheer has been a part of characters that have gone on to, become a very big part of what's going on right now. Kind of the thread that ties a lot of things together.
Oh yeah.
But so they've left the Distributary now, both Sheer and Mara, and prior to the first attack by the Fallen on the newly re-entered Awoken, Sheer tells Mara that she has had a dream, a premonition of her own death, and it's going to be at the hands of these Fallen, and says it will be something I choose to do, and it will be incontrovertibly heroic. And Mara's response is that she is not allowed to die.
Yeah.
And it's said not in a not in the fashion you might imagine, not in the the pleading fashion or the you be careful fashion. It's in the statement of fact.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to die.
That's very much how I took that as well. Like that was a very much like a Yeah, that was Mara stating facts there. That's a very good way to put it.
And so essentially what happens is the Fallen attack the fleet of Awoken that are setting up base within the reef. And in that attack, Sheer kind of wins the day via what is supposed to be a suicide mission to blow up the enemy catch.
Yeah.
And that moment where she should have died, where that should have been the end, and she knew it should have been the end because she had seen it, for days and weeks and months beforehand. She survived, and all she, when she survived that moment, all that was in her head at the time was essentially Mara's like very cocky, smirking face of like, "Told you," yeah. And it's implied that through Mara's inherent paracausal abilities, just by being Queen of the Awoken, the first of the Awoken, that she was able to exact enough change to prevent Shir from actually dying, to protect her in some way.
Zone C lost.
Yep.
So, things jump around a little bit from this point forward. As far as chronologically, it's hard to necessarily tell where everything happens.
I was going to say, in trying to decipher a timeline, it's very hard.
It is. So I know where things, quote unquote, end.
We have a beginning and we have an end. We just
We have a
don't.
beginning, we have an end.
That middle bit is the wishy-washy part.
The middle's kind of muddled. So what I think happens as far as chronologically, is, and this is a moment that we went over in our previous episode, but I think it is very much worth repeating because it solidifies a lot of the relationship between Mara and Sheer. There is a scene after Riven is found where Mara has truly been crowned as queen and has been acting as queen for quite some time at this point of the Reefborn Awoken. And it is known by everybody on some level that Mara has powers above and beyond what any of the other Awoken have. No one knows exactly what they are. No one knows exactly, what she's capable of. But everyone just has this sense of reverence, of near godly worship of her within the Awoken people. And Seer comes to Mara and says, there is no difference for you between what is and what is to be. Thus, you are a god now, as you will one day become one, and godhood is not temporal. Should I now worship you? Presents this question of, are you greater than me? Should I be not just bodyguard and companion, but worshiper? And still in what I think is one of the very few scenes where we see Mara with no mask, no tricks, like
No
truly telling the truth.
No secrets in that one. That's because Mara does love a good secret.
She does. But so Mara's response to this question is that she kneels, and I think that's significant as well. She's putting herself, she as someone that is always wanted respect, always wanted to be mysterious and on a pedestal and unobtainable. She is physically lowering herself below Sheer in this case. And it says, Verbatim. Mara kneels, taking her beloved's face in her shaking hands. Sheer, on the day you worship me, you can no longer love me, for to worship is to wield all power, and I cannot love that which has no power over me. So, that pretty well solidifies the relationship between these two, as far as I'm concerned.
That to me that's like short of an actual full on ceremony and everything. That's the marriage between Mara
Yes.
and Sheer.
She's pleading with her.
Yeah.
Regardless of how others see me, regardless of how I'm perceived, I don't want you to ever think of me as above you. Because then that is not mutual love. That is worship. And so Cyr tells her, "Then you will be no god to me." Just reconfirming that, that she also wants that relationship to continue as it is now.
And this is important. This is a very important note to make. That
This is a very important note to make.
Because there is a lore card later on that we'll discuss eventually, and we're going to get to the bottom of this lore card. But for now,
just remember
Sheer
this
and Mara,
point.
Sheer Ido and Mara, Sheer Ido and Marasov are wed, basically, without any type of formal ceremony or anything. But in that sense of, because I and now this is just kind of me. This is kind of just me, like, looking at it from the outside.
A new chapter commence.
I don't think that Mara officially wanted any type of relationship with anyone. I still think Mara very much is. She kind of has. I don't want to say she wants to be alone, but she has that bit of loneliness to her. Like she doesn't. I don't think she.
Be captured. You have the advantage.
I can't say she doesn't want a companion, because she acts like that whole scene with her and Sheer out of there. That's very much a scene of, like, she is wanting Sheer as a companion.
I always took it, and I think the other bit about this scene is the fact that Riven's in the room. And this is the only recorded time where Riven has been able to feed off of Mara. Which means that Mara had a desire. And the reason why Riven has not been able to feed off Mara up till this point is because Mara's goals, her future, what would for other people be future wants, future desires, to Mara are set in stone already, because she knows everything that needs to happen to make them happen, and is so confident that those events will come to pass that they might as well have they are reality for her already.
And that's where that thing where Sheer says,
have gone cold.
What you want and what is to be, that's the same thing. And that's why she thinks of her as a god, because Mara does have that level of confidence about her, of just, this is the path that's going to happen, full stop. There's no, like, or else, or if then. No, this is the path that's going to happen, full stop. And everything that is happening is some other building block in this path, or whatever, like, however you want to make that analogy there. That's what I take. That's what I take Mara's, like, non-desire desire to be.
And what gives this scene a tinge of tragedy, in my opinion, is that the fact that Riven is able to feed specifically off of the want, the desire that Mara has to be with Sheer, implies that in Mara's future, that's not something that's set in stone. That's not something that she is confident comes to pass, because it is something that she has a actual desire for.
I never even made that connection. Holy shit! No, that's.
So all of this is being said from Mara's point of view. You know, her you know, asking Sheer to don't see me this way. You know, I want to have this relationship with you is all being said through the lens of knowing or not expecting it to actually come to pass, to actually end how she wants it to end. And that having that desire in the back of her head, hoping that you know, that poor ending, quote unquote, is not the route things go.
Yeah.
So but so after this, the relationship is well established in the lore at this point. There's actually another scene that I think is very relevant to where we are going in the story as a whole. That is hard to place chronologically, so I'm going to place it here.
Okay.
So this is on the Sleepless rocket launcher. And it's essentially Sheer and Mara presumably in their chambers. And Sheer has been asleep and wakes up at the sound of Mara writing in books and journals at the desk at within these chambers. And Sheer comes to her and says, "I was dreaming. I saw you on a great black triangle. You split it in two with your bare hands. And I was dead, I think." She cracks her neck with a little pop. "Or trapped, like in a maze, but pretty close to figuring my way out." Sheer stands up to stretch. She doesn't mind if Mara's not listening. "And there was another woman with you." "On the triangle?" Mara murmurs. "Yeah, she was helping, and then your brother showed up, and..." She shook her arms out and frowned thoughtfully. The dream was starting to fade. He said, "Tropeia? Or was it tropical?" Anyway, I guess it doesn't matter. So this dream...
There's a lot in that, like, if any of this dream... Because, like, the whole time she's telling Mara this, Mara's just kind of like, uh-huh.
Yeah,
uh-huh.
she's very much not...
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. You know. But there's some interesting implications here. So, saw you on a great black triangle. We kind of know what that is now.
That to me is too... That's too obvious. Like that's too obvious. You know, like, that's... You can't... There's no other... In my opinion, there's no other interpretation of this. That is the darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the question becomes how much of this is metaphor and how much of this is literal.
Yes.
I think Mara literally cleaved a triangle ship, a pyramid ship.
I freaking hope so. I want
That
to
would
see
be
her just
so
karate
cool.
chop a ship, just jump up in space, yeah, and it'll just clap, and then like everyone just like, oh god, now what?
That would be really fucking cool.
That would be awesome.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
No,
not in that way.
Now, okay, so the other woman.
3 minutes remain.
I think Eris.
Keep the pressure on.
I think Savathun.
See, I could see this go either way. I absolutely could.
And the only reason why I say Savathun is because of that black triangle split in half. And if you remember from some of the footage that we saw from the reveal trailer and everything for Witch Queen, there is a darkness ship that is cracked in half.
Not only that, it is the raid.
That's
what, has been confirmed to be the raid for the expansion.
What? Tell me this isn't like foreshadowing or something like that.
So the only thing about that is that pyramid ship is in Savathun's throne room.
In her throne room. Yep.
Which means it can show up however the heck Savathun wants it to show up. Actually,
yes.
it doesn't. the fact that it's there is interesting in and of itself, because it doesn't need to be there if she doesn't want it to be there.
Not just that, like the whole thing with her realm, like we've talked about this before, is that everything about it is to her desire, to her. Literally, how Mara did the distributary is how these throne warps work as well. So we don't. That ship could have either traveled there, or it could just be Savathun putting one there. Like, there's so much unknown about why is this black ship, this triangle ship, in her throne world.
Now, my interpretation of this originally, I like where your head's at there, and I think that would be interesting if that ship tied in with it being a damaged, pyramid ship. I'm approaching this more from the metaphorical standpoint.
Okay.
And that's why my initial thought was Eris Morn, because we know Eris has deep ties to Mara, refers to her as my queen.
Yeah.
Helped Mara build Eleusina before it became the Shattered Throne.
Yep.
Helped Mara build her own throne world.
Because is Eris? I don't know if we figured this out or if we talked about it or not. Is Eris an Awoken?
I don't think we've had confirmation one way or the other, and it's kind of hard to tell now.
Right. I mean, when you've got hive eyeballs and dark crap leaking down your face, it's...
Plus, she doesn't really have any other openings to see if she has blue skin, so
yeah,
she could be, she could not be. I'm not sure. And I have yet to find anywhere in the discussions between the two that indicate one way or the other.
Sure.
But so we know that Eris has been working with her to try to subvert the darkness as much as possible.
Yeah.
So from a metaphorical standpoint, cleaving the dark in two could be her and Eris working together to undo whatever the plans are of the darkness.
Sure.
But I could see either interpretation, because I completely didn't even think about the Throne World pyramid ship, so that would be kind of cool too.
So and then the other part in this little deal is the thing about Sheer thinking that she was dead or trapped in a maze.
So I have some supporting lore in regards to that little bit.
Well, lay it on me, baby.
So, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. We've alluded.
Are we derailing like we usually do?
Not quite to that degree.
I don't know that our stories ever have a true one-way track. It's just 40 tracks laid side by side, and the train we're just picking it up and putting it on a different track every once in a while, driving it forward, then putting it back on the first track. And yeah.
If anything, I think that just shows how interconnected all of the different bits of Destiny truly are.
It's so
which
interconnected.
is a testament to their abilities, in my opinion. But so, if you hadn't guessed, especially by those that have already done the Wishender quest, Sheer is not currently in the game, and that's because no one knows where the hell she is. Presumed dead, but maybe not. And we'll talk about some of that as well. But so in regards to the trapped in a maze, but pretty close to figuring my way out. When you do the Wishender quest chain, which is tied to Sheer Ido, the Wishender is literally her bow. There's a part where you have to go through the Ascendant Realm.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're there, you get some very interesting dialogue from Toland. Toland the Shattered.
This guy
crazy
is...
person in the Ascendant Realm.
This guy.
So Toland says something along the lines of, you must prove yourself to her, referring to Sheer, because you are collecting the tokens from her previous enemies to present to her statue in the Shattered Throne to get the Wishender bow.
Basically prove that you're worthy for this bow.
Yes, so Toland, who only lives in the Ascendant Realm, is telling you you need to prove yourself before Sheer will give you her bow. And when she does give you her bow at the end of the quest chain, she says the line, "I will seek a way home," which makes me think that similar to how Mara was in the Ascendant Plane as just a ball of consciousness, similar to how Toland is in the Ascendant Plane as 1,000 little balls of consciousness, that maybe Sheer has ended up in a similar state and is trying to traverse the Ascendant Plane to find a way back to our realm.
I'm 100% with you on this. That is exactly. I could not have worded it any better myself. That is exactly what I was thinking. As far as like the maze and where is Sheer? Like I am very, very under the strong belief that she is just a little ball of energy or whatever floating around the Ascendant Plane, trying to figure out how to get back. And so to kind of rewind and say, you know, she's not in game. We think she's in the Ascendant Realm. We don't know how, or even if that's true.
We don't have any exact info, but we do have some circumstantial evidence that
Lots of
is
clues.
very interesting.
Lots and lots of clues.
We're going to back up just a touch before we dive into that, because there is another important interaction she has with a character we've all very recently become very acquainted with. So, I'll say this comes from one of the lore books, I believe, around the Dreaming City. And it's describing that a vandal, a fallen or a Lixni vandal, has been captured by Sheer Ido and is being brought, presumably as a prisoner, to the Dreaming City. The vandal is so ashamed at the fact that he was captured, that his captors did not deem him worthy to kill, is his viewpoint. That he has decided he would rather take his own life than deal with the shame of being a prisoner of war. And so he finds an opportunity to knock Sheer down. I think he trips her, and he just sprints for the edge of a cliff and just dives off. Yeah, committed to committed to ending his life versus having the shame of returning to his house.
And he's shackled at this point. Like he's straight up in handcuffs. Like he's just, I'm out.
Yeah, he has no hope for survival. He is just, I'm done with this.
Nope.
And Sheer, although is tripped up at first, is able to compose herself, run after this vandal, and in that superhero moment, grab him right before he's too far down the cliff, and pulls him back up, and essentially goes, "Okay, let's start over for a second. Don't be doing that." And so she performs a Lixni bow and ritual, which is stated as making peace, a way of making peace between two Elixni, which confuses and irritates and a whole slew of other emotions to this vandal, who's like, "How the hell do you know all this? Like, I'm really upset that you know these bits of our culture, but I'm also super shocked."
There's a lot there. Like it's that interaction between the two of them is very much like a kind of an eye opener for both of them, I think.
Yes, very much so. And so this vandal is very perturbed, but is also honor bound to respond to this gesture. And so he responds in likeness, and she introduces herself as Shir Ido, and this Vandal introduces himself as Mithrax, who she then immediately gets wrong and deems Mithrax.
Yep.
And has stuck ever since.
Ever since. And I love the way that she does it too. It's very much this like she wants to communicate with him. Like she wants to talk to him and kind of I don't know if it's full on like enjoy his company or whatever, but like she definitely wants to learn more about him. And so when she sits down and talks to him, she sits there and kind of like puts a few fingers to her chest and is like tapping her chest and is like Shir Ido, and then kind of points at him, and he just kind of puts one of his one of his many arms at his chest and says Mithrax, and it's very much like it's that point of when one learns the other and then the other learns back, and then they're like, wait a second, what is happening here? Like, I'm your captive, you're my captor, I don't want what? Like it's a very confusing, in my opinion, for both of them. That's how I read it at first, and then like to think of it from Shear's side, where she's just like, I just want to learn, like let's learn, and then for Mithrax to be like, who the hell are you?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like what? What do you mean? Let's learn. I don't want to learn. And then that moment of like. That I don't want to say like Mithrax kind of letting his guard down or not, because I don't know if that was the thing or not of him being very guarded or not, but I think from an Elixni standpoint they are just a very guarded species,
yeah, absolutely.
In general, and so that's where like I see that as him kind of like letting his guard down and going, all right, I'll play this game with you.
Yeah, so that starts the relationship between Mithrax and Shear, and it's very much a relationship of camaraderie, of learning from each other, and just being buddies, really. I think him meeting her did a lot to give him the capacity for trust that has led him to become the Kell of House of Light as we know him. Because we're not sure how long they spent together, but it's implied that it was quite some time, a number of years at least. And they had a relationship. They had enough respect for each other that he very specifically sought out to visit her grave after her presumed passing, and went so far as to name his daughter after her. Ido, the scribe of House of Light, is directly named after Sheer Ido. So it had a very big impact on Mithrax, and he and the House of Light probably would not exist as they are today without the interaction between those two. So it's yet another thread that she is tied to within the greater story.
Absolutely, and very much that yeah, I think of that first interaction of the two of them being like Mithrax's, like, I don't want to say overarching theory behind other species, but it's to me I read it as Mithrax is saying, okay, well maybe there's more than just being a Kell of Kells or a Kell of anything or in charge of a house or anything. Like maybe there really is more to this universe.
Yeah, and I remember, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me and I don't remember the exact dialogue, but during Season of the Splicer, Mithrax says something along the lines of, I was spared once and befriended, or I was spared and befriended once by an Awoken, and then again by a Guardian, us, in the mission on Titan. And to be shown mercy twice by two different groups touched by the light, made me believe that there is the possibility of trust between us. Uh, so I absolutely think that though the interaction with Sheer and then again the interaction with us as the Guardian, like that is what caused him to be who he is.
Yep, absolutely.
Captured Zone B. 2 zones are yours.
So,
Zone C.
now we come to the
Even light.
big question mark of the fate of Sheer Ido. And so, I mentioned Orin previously because she plays a very small role in some of the information that we gather, and Orin in and of has her own story in and of herself that is also fantastical and is something we need to go over. But I'm only going to touch on the little bits where she pertains to Sheer.
Sure.
So Orin was previously Nama. Nama, the Awoken that came from the Distributary, was very, very good friends with Sheer in the Distributary as well as outside of. And she wanted to spread gospel, essentially spread word of, you know, Mara as queen and kind of how she is trying to help people.
Yep.
During her mission to do that, she was killed by Risen. It described something along the lines of Risen that were so scared of themselves they were scared of everything else.
And I take that to be the first Risen, like
yes, during the
first few
Warlord
Risen.
era's
Definitely
Dark Age
during the
kind
Warlord.
of time. Yep.
Yep.
So she was killed by the Risen, and then subsequently was revived by a ghost and became a guardian and took on the name Orin. And
Which that's all right. I don't know why I don't know that it's bugged me or what, but it it's kind of a middle finger to her. It feels like, you know, like
a little bit, yeah.
these Risen who have no idea what the hell they're Risen for. They don't know what they have powers and they can't die. What do people that are with powers that can't die? Well, we're gonna kill everything else around us that can die, and then for her to be brought back as one, like
There are days when even the Vanguard.
that's rude.
Not like you.
You could say the same thing of Aldrin. Like, dude had
All right.
a messed up life of just being put in situation after situation, sometimes, you know, often not by his own accord, often by some user of, or, you know, after effect of light, only to then be manipulated and then murdered by presumably a light bearer, to be then brought back as one. Like, it's the same kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
And to that effect, we have no idea how many of the current Guardians were just mortal civilians during the Dark Age that had the same thing happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, regardless,
there's
there's a lot to unpack with Orin, which we will absolutely do in a later episode. But all we need to remember about her for this point in time is she was previously to being a guardian, a very close confidant of Queen Mara, a friend to Sheer Ido, and is now a guardian with absolutely no memory of that. And she comes back to the reef, kind of chasing the idea of who she once was, trying to figure out some information about herself, what her mission was, and meets with Sheer and meets with Mara, and is more or less told exactly how, you know, what she was prior to becoming a guardian, which is very rare. Even amongst Awoken, where Mara pretty much does know the story behind a large majority of the Awoken Guardians, either directly or indirectly. She very intentionally does not tell them anything about themselves, with the exception of Orin. And essentially, Mara, says, by Reef law, by Queen's law, you have broken our laws. You are trespassing in the Reef, and there is consequences for that. And what she decides is that you will owe me a favor, essentially. Like, I will call on you to do something for me at some time in the future, and you will do it. In exchange for all this information, and in exchange for your transgressions against Queen's law.
Yep.
Which she accepts. And unfortunately, when Mara calls in that favor, it is because Shir Ido has been found dead. And there's some information. We have a little bit of information about that from the meeting. Well, there's a couple things here, but first, so Orin goes to meet with Mara, and Mara tells her that I need to know who killed her, who killed Shir Ido, and Orin essentially knows, do you need to know? Do you just want to know who it was, or do you want to take revenge on them? And Mara tells her, I just want to know for now. I'm not sure if it was a murder. And she hands Orin a strange coin that the search party found on Shir's body. And if we read into this a little bit, strange coins used to be the currency that you used to pay Zur, who is also an emissary of the Nine.
Bam! Bam!
So we have some implications here that
that helps lead to that theory of Shir Ido being possibly captive of the Nine.
Right. Maybe the Nine are involved in some way.
Something like it's very much like, because I don't remember the where that lore specifically is, but if they capitalize the word strange coin, then that's absolutely what it is. Like it's not even like a metaphor anymore. Like that is the strange coins that we paid Zur.
Well, and it's definitely not a metaphor, because I don't know if they capitalized it in the lore card, but Orin tracks it to Zur.
Oh,
she finds Zur and essentially tortures the poor guy to find
which is
out,
why he has the limp now. Like that's why he's like.
That is exactly why.
That's literally like in game. He's like hunched over, and he's got kind of like a broken arm. It feels like, or looks like, and he is literally that way because Orin beat the crap out of him. And all Zur says is, please forgive them. Assumedly talking about the Nine. Yeah.
Now, we get into some interesting territory here, because a lot of things line up for the Nine, but there are some things that don't. And specifically, well, actually, I'm going to take a step back first, because those discussions are going to be long. So I want to talk about a couple other points first.
Okay.
Regarding the murder of Shir Ido and the state her body was found in. So, if we look at the Oath Keepers, the exotics hunter gloves.
Yep.
The statement on Oath Keepers, the flavor text before the actual lore card, is a statement from Shir Ido saying, "I have not yet met my true death." We do not know the context of when she said that, but if we want to assume
Which is funny, because we know where those are.
Yes, we know where Hugin and Munin are.
And their bones absolutely speak to us.
Well, they trade with us. they give us things.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
They don't literally speak. But so there's some interesting implications here. First, her bow is missing, so Wish Ender was not on her body. So then how the hell did it end up in the statue to be given to us?
Yep.
Maybe Mara found it and put it there, because Mara is the one that carved that statue.
Yep.
Maybe
and you and I were running Shattered Throne earlier today, and when we came across the statue, my first inclination was that the statue is very much amethyst, just like Savathun is right now, and so that's where I was making I wouldn't say an improper connection, but I couldn't. No. I didn't know if that was actually Sheer Ido there in the Shadowed Realm, encased in amethyst, or if it was a statue built to honor her. And it's very much Mara has built the statue. Like it is a built thing.
Yeah, they describe Mara as carving the statue. So in my viewpoint, created, and it's just a statue.
Yeah.
So her bow is missing, but ends up at her statue. In the Shattered Throne, which is in the Ascendant Realm. So this is something to support that her spirit is floating around, and she was so attached to that bow. That bow was such a personal item for her that maybe it manifested, just from her will. Maybe it was intentionally given to us as the Guardian. We don't know how much, assuming she's in the Ascendant Realm, we don't know how much she has been able to know about what's going on in our world, but Tolan certainly seems to know things that are going on outside the Ascendant Plane.
Frickin' Tolan.
So it's not completely unbelievable that she wouldn't. Plus, again, if we assume she's in the Ascendant Plane, we know that Mara went through the Ascendant Plane. There's no indication that they ever met each other, if Sheer is there. But she did meet Toland, and again, Toland could have passed info along.
Because when Mara meets Toland in there, like Mara's like screams at him, and he's just like, "Whoa!" and runs away. Like,
yes. So maybe meet is not the right word there. Traumatized?
Traumatized by it. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's just yeah.
But so the other thing that I find interesting here is the mention that there were two Ahamkara with Sheer, and that both were dead alongside Sheer's body, and that their bones did not speak. So I think that is also important. I did not find any reference to either Hugin or Munin outside of this one lore card and their skulls in game.
That's crazy.
We have no idea where these Ahamkara came from, what their purpose was. Nothing. Presumably, they were allied Ahamkara because, their skulls have been given kind of, pedestals to be on within the Dreaming City. I wonder if perhaps they were children of Riven.
Possibly.
Very unsure. Now, the other thing that really makes me wonder is because the purpose of these Ahamkara is because in the Dreaming City you can do the exploration missions, like go to this point and scan kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah,
The patrols.
And it's is it Shirochi that's giving
It
you the
is
information?
actually Shirochi that gives you dialogue.
Yes,
Yeah.
not in my head Shiraido as Shirochi. No, it is Shirochi. The Techian Shirochi talks to you on these, and she gives you information about the Dreaming City.
Yes. So on the patrol that leads you down to the chamber, I believe it's Harbinger's Recluse, the chamber where Hugin and Moonin's skulls are.
Yep.
Shirochi gives you this dialogue. She says, "This chamber was refashioned in honor of Shiraido, the first Queen's Wrath, when she was found dead. She was a fearsome warrior in her own right, the only awoken to ever survive an Aphelion attack, and a skilled hunter of traitorous Ahamkara." So, was she hunting Hugin and Moonin at the time that this happened? And if there are traitorous Ahamkara, does that imply there are also additional allied Ahamkara? Or used to be at some point? Because Petra and others do reference Riven as the last Ahamkara. Now, maybe they don't know, because that's certainly a possibility. But they at least had given Shir the job of hunting traitorous Ahamkara, whatever that means.
Traitorous snakes.
So the other thing that I find interesting about this bit from Shirochi in particular is the mention of Aphelion. And I don't have a whole lot of good info around it. I say a lot of the things that I find out about Aphelion are tied to those lore entries of like ships calling for Mayday and whatnot.
Yep.
But no real good indication of what it is. But she is the only awoken to survive it, whatever it is.
As with much as in Destiny's lore, what the fuck?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. So I did find this one instance, and this is actually coming from Emperor Callus, one of his scribed histories from the Chronicon. So, take it all with a grain of salt.
As with everything in Destiny lore.
As with everything in Destiny lore, but Callus especially, because he's very full of himself. It says, as a courtesy, the Vanguard of Earth was permitted to leave the Leviathan unharmed, and the Shadow of Earth gathered the Loyalist forces after the reclamation of Athenium World 10, which held in it the secrets of one of the most advanced predators in the system, the Aphelion, which had the power to devastate whole worlds in the blink of an eye. The Shadow was able to use this lost knowledge to rebuild the Loyalist fleet stronger and more magnificent than ever. So, by Callus's account, The Aphelion is the most advanced predator in the system.
But what is it?
But what is it?
What the hell is it?
One of the other references we have is that there is a lost sector in the Dreaming City called Aphelion's Rest. Presumably the Aphelion that Sheer killed, or survived the fight with.
I don't know, man. Like to me that says Ahamkara Worm God.
Maybe the part that makes me pause is the most when it's described as the most advanced predator in the system, because advanced doesn't make me think ancient and primal. Advanced makes me think technologically advanced. And maybe that's a misinterpretation. It could certainly mean a number of things. But that's where my head goes immediately.
I like where you're going with that. You may be onto something there.
So, another little bit from Shirochi regarding the Aphelion. This is if you do the pilgrimage patrol to the Gardens of Isilia, and you're looking at the Techian statues in that garden. And she says, those statues there, those Techians died a vicious, irreversible death. They died in trance, each one screaming with the other's voice, each one unable to comprehend the horror of the thing that had killed him. The Techians you see here died while they were in trance together. Sometimes when you are in communion, you cannot see what is coming close, like the Aphelion. Their last words were these: first it shimmered, then it crawled, then it screamed.
Holy cow. Well, and that screaming bit is we see that a lot with Ahamkara.
Yes.
Both Ahamkara and anything to do with traversing between our world and the Ascendant Plane.
Zone B lost.
We do see it a lot with Ahamkara. I would expect if anyone's going to make a connection to the Ahamkara, though, it's going to be the Awoken Techians.
Sure.
Like, they seem to refer to it very specifically as a different thing. As a thing in and of itself. And there's additional stuff that Shirochi says, so that you can get a number of dialogues from the same location. And there are two other dialogues that mention the Aphelion. It says, these three Techians were victim to the Aphelion. I pray you never see it, my friend, because no matter what gods you have killed, you will not survive it.
This thing is...
And the last one says, we Techians are taught absolute obedience to our queen. We have no desires but what our queen desires. We have no fears but what our queen fears. Good traits, but weaknesses against certain enemies, like the Taken, like the Aphelion. So,
I think we've asked more questions than we found answers to.
There is a thing out there somewhere that's real fucking scary. That's called the Aphelion. That's what we've learned.
But it has been killed.
Well, an Aphelion has been killed.
Oh. We don't know if Aphelion is the name of the thing or the name of the species.
So they imply, going back to that one I was talking about in the Harbinger Seclude, says this chamber was refashioned in honor of Shir Ido, the first Queen's Wrath, when she was found dead. She was a fearsome warrior in her own right, the only Awoken to ever survive an Aphelion attack, and a skilled hunter of traitorous Ahamkara. So they refer to it as an Aphelion, as in one of a group.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a whole species of bad things out there that we have not even met before. To the point where the Techian, Shirochi, is telling us, I don't care what you've done, I don't care what gods you have killed, you're not living through that thing. Which just goes to show even more the power, the immortal power of sheer Ido if she was able to go toe-to-toe with one of these things and live to tell the tale.
I feel like it's more than just that though. Like I definitely feel like it's part of that magic. I put that in quotation. That is of the awoken people and that connection to Mara.
I believe so too.
I think there's a lot there that and like her first where she was like, this is where I die. And then when the explosion happens on the catch, she's thrown from the explosion and is alive. Mm-hmm. Like that's just that's the weird part. That's one where it's like, well, what the heck, you know? So yeah.
Now that we've thoroughly derailed onto a boogeyman that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
So to roll back to Sheer a little bit, so the other part of this, where they mentioned she was a skilled hunter of traitorous Ahamkara, and she was found with the body of two Ahamkara, Hugin and Munin. Was she hunting them? Were they allies to her while she was doing whatever it was she was doing? But if they were there at the time of her death, and she had a desire that this I have not yet met my true death, could they have wish magicked her into the Ascendant Realm? Could that be how she ended up where she is? Because she had the desire to continue living, and they made it happen in traditional Ahamkara form, probably not in the way she imagined or would have wanted if she had the choice. But she is still out there somewhere.
Yeah. Dude,
no.
This is like there is so much more to every and we say this every week. When we Myth and I always think of like this like, oh, there's just going to be this little small story and it's going to be cool and we're going to tell it and it's going to be done and then that's it. No. Every single week we go through these stories and we're like, what the hell? And we find all these crazy little things and we're like, what the hell? And then it becomes this bigger intertwined, like every little bit of this is intertwined with every other little bit of Destiny. There's so much happening that it's genuinely hard to separate any one part of a story from any other part of the story.
It really is. All of these characters, all of these entities, the Nine and the Darkness and the Ahamkara and the Awoken and the Hive and Savathun, they all have such overlapping motivations. They all have there are so many things that tie them together that honestly, the only thing I can even begin to compare the Odyssey that is all of the Destiny lore to would be something like the entirety of Tolkien's written work or something,
right.
Where it's just this huge world and all of these different rules of how that world works are so intricately woven into all these different characters and these set pieces and these cultures, and it just you pull on one thread and you can see how it's tied to this whole web of other
60 more threads come loose and, and then each one of those threads are tied to 60 more threads and each one of those threads are tied. There is so much to everything. And I think that's what I absolutely love about these stories that we keep doing every week of the lore, where we try to take just one bit of it and just look at one small section of it and try to wrap our minds around that, and then slowly build these connections to other parts of it. And I was saying this to Myth earlier too when we were running Shattered Throne. I'm so glad that we covered Mara's story pretty much in its entirety without even knowing that Mara was going to essentially be the center of Season of the Lost. So we had a real good refresher on her entire story and what she thinks, how she thinks, like to have that refresher and then to have that kind of forefront the entire time we're doing Season of the Lost. So there's all these little things that we've come across that's like, oh, okay, well that makes sense now because of this, and that's happening because of that, and oh yeah, that happened over there. I forgot about that, and da da da. Like it's, I think there's so much more in this season that we're gonna find tied to Mara. That's gonna mean a lot.
I agree wholeheartedly, and especially going through now the lore of Sheer, I really hope she comes back as some kind of, even if it's not a main character, some kind of side character, some kind of mention, because everything that's been going on with her up, through her story and the visionary dreams she had, of Mara and the Darkness ship and being in a maze, like all of that is so relevant to what's going on right now.
I can't not see. Okay, here it is, everyone. This is Labor Day weekend. Not even the third week of the season. I'm saying it right now that Shiraido is going to be part of the season.
I would be very, very happy if she was.
Full on prediction right now.
I think that her entry into this season at some point could be that wild card. So, because we know how the season's going to end by nature of knowing, or at least we assume we know by nature of the trailer from The Witch Queen.
Yeah.
We know that Savathun gets free and is our enemy, is the big bad of the Witch Queen.
Yeah.
She's been confirmed as the villain, so unless that is like the best kept secret in Bungie history and they're all trolling us, she's the bad guy. I mean, it'd be really interesting if they kept it quiet and she wasn't the big bad.
Would you put it past them though? Like,
I think if they could do it, they absolutely would. But I also think if we tried to base all of our theories off pure speculation, then like we wouldn't get anywhere.
We wouldn't get anywhere. Nothing would happen.
Taking the information we know now, as we know it currently, something happens this season that Savathun is free to go back to her throne world and do whatever bad stuff she's going to do that we're going to go stop her from doing.
Yeah.
That implies that Mara's current plan of take the worm out and kill her doesn't work.
Yeah. So there's an interesting thing there, and I know we're kind of getting away from Shiraido tonight, but the worms that so the hive as we know it are a combination of krill and worm, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The krill have to have these worms in order to live longer than like 10 years or so.
Yeah, I think it's 10 or 15, something like that.
So without her worm, does she effectively age rapidly and die?
Not if she has access to the light, perhaps.
That was my thought too. Like if she has either access to the light or access to the dark, something that, especially the light, because we always attribute the light with being the resurrection, the revival of dead things. And even her skill of necromancy, like who's to say she can't necromancy her way back to life that way? So that's it. There's a lot there to be said as far as like what would a hive without its worm, what would a hive without its worm be, or krill without its worm be? Would it just wither up and die instantly? Are they do they look the way they look when we come across them as hive because they are ancient now? Like, is that like
Yeah.
there's a damn it, more questions than freaking answers.
Before we get too far down that thread, I want to finish up the last little bits of Shiraido here.
Okay.
And then we can go into bonus round.
Bonus round
with some Savathun theories, because I absolutely have some theories as well that I wanna bounce off you.
Yeah.
So to wrap up some of Shiraido, so her body's found. The only other thing here, so we've got kind of one option or one potential thing. She's in the Ascendant Realm by nature of an Ahamkara wish or something else. It seems pretty... The evidence is definitely pointing towards the Nine being responsible for her death.
Absolutely.
In some fashion. And actually, when Mara first sees the strange coins that were left on her body, she refers to it as Weregild, which is the act of compensation for killing a family member.
Interesting.
So that was a medieval practice when, if I'm remembering correctly, when a member of a family was killed in combat, so like say the son of a duke or a supporting vassal was killed in combat, you would pay a weregild to the family as compensation for that death.
Interesting.
So the fact that the Nine or strange coins, which have only ever been in reference to the Nine, were used as a weregild, or as Mara perceives it as a weregild, pretty much tells me the Nine were responsible. Directly or indirectly unknown, because the Nine don't really get how mortals work.
We are such a mystery to them, just by nature of what they are. Or I say what they are, like as if we know what they even are. Like that's
its own episode.
Yeah. We're definitely. We tried to cover the Nine once in like a quick like. Bloop. Nope.
No.
Just like everything else in Destiny, a quick bloop ain't gonna happen.
It ain't gonna work. But the thing is that the Nine have the ability to communicate with us as we are. The entities that they are can communicate with our plane of existence easier now because they have the emissary. At the time of Shir's death, they did not have the emissary of the Nine because Orin had not become the emissary yet.
Right.
So the only thing they had that was even remotely close was Zur. And Zur was kind of an experiment of the Nine slapping together parts to see what sticks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's not exactly well equipped to be, having a conversation with somebody in our existence. Yeah, to do his job.
Just because simple things. I say simple things, but having a form, having a body is not something that the Nine even, like having hunger, having like things that I would say we as people, as mortal beings, that's just an everyday thing to us. They don't even have that concept. Like they are a consciousness of themselves.
You have the advantage.
Yes, they are so far removed from what we perceive as reality that they cannot perceive our reality.
And that's the whole reason why they even need an emissary, because they
Yeah.
need someone to be that middle ground, to be that to be that level of that bridge, like that something that can be of the nine and of humanity and be able to kind of like it. I think of it as like an interpreter.
Yes, exactly. Translator,
Yeah,
essentially.
absolutely.
Yeah. So to wrap up the Nine's involvement here and just kind of cement that they were a part of whatever happened, is the Wish Ender lore card, which I'm just going to read in its entirety because it's all relevant to
Absolutely.
a degree.
This whole and we keep I know we mentioned this before, but like Wishender is obviously Shiraido's bow. We go on a quest to retrieve it, acquire it. Yeah, no, acquire is a better word there. We go on a quest to acquire it, and then we this is a huge bow. It's because it's not even a recurve bow, right? Like it's a long
No,
bow.
this is longbow. This is traditional longbow, and they
Huge
say
longbow.
Sheer is described as being very tall. I want to say she was described as being 7 foot tall, and the bow being 9.
Get out of town. And
Something
I
like
used to be under the impression that like we as guardians had shrunk down the bow. No. If you've got that bow on your back in the tower, it is literally like 4 feet over the top of you.
is pretty huge.
It's huge. It's freaking huge.
So, but no. So Wishender on its lore card reads as thus: Sheer Ido stood, slow joints snapping, second to none but the Sovs themselves. Stood straight-backed, sharp-sighted, pleased to skewer enemies at any distance. And just to break away here, I am intentionally not punctuating things because there is no punctuation written in this, which is part of the mystique behind it. Yeah. Sure Ido listened close, head cocked, arrow knocked, listened to her queen's layered lies, and heard only the truths as endless courtly complaints flowed around them like the mist of the Devalia. Sure Ido watched shadows, wind warp, widen, watched surveillance feeds, encrypted snaps, the weapon hand of every woman and man who wished an audience. Sure Ido swore with revelation, righteous fury, betrayed, 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 swore an oath to rise again. Sure Ido drew, loosed, fell, lost. So, the lack of punctuation, and if you're reading the card, the way that certain phrases are presented, such as the betrayed being repeated, the word lost at the end has spaces between each character. All of those are very much how we have seen dialogue written as being from the Nine previously.
Yep.
So that really cements that the Nine is a part of this. The message here itself is a little cryptic. I do think it's worth noting that there are 9 betrayeds in a row.
Fuck.
So I don't know if that...
I didn't even count them. I just read them and was like, it's fine. Yeah, it's probably the 9. That's it. That's confirmed. Check box.
That all but confirms. Now, so there's some questions.
I didn't even count them. God dang it.
There are some questions here. The first one I think seems to be, so I'm actually reading this not as Sheer describing things. I'm reading this as the 9 observing her.
Yes.
So the first bit stood slow, joints snapping, second to none but the Sovs themselves. Stood straight backed, sharp sighted, pleased to skewer enemies at any distance. Listened close, head cocked, arrow knocked, listened to her queen's layered lies, and heard only the truths as endless courtly complaints follows. So I read that entire thing as she is on guard, bodyguard for Mara in Mara's court as she's accepting royal retainers to tell her about what's going on in the Awoken Kingdom.
And the 9 as observers are just watching.
Yeah, this is just the 9, kind of stream of consciousness, what the 9 are observing about Sheer in this environment of like her day-to-day job, essentially her day-to-day life. And this second bit, I think, is a little more relevant to the actual, time of her demise or her fate. So again, Sure Ido watched shadows, wind, warp, widen, watched surveillance feeds encrypted, snaps the weapon hand of every woman and man who wished an audience. So I think that is also just Sure is always very wary of the shadows, is always, on surveillance.
Very observant.
Before somebody can get an audience with the queen.
Yeah.
Now this bit, I think, is particular to the moment that she died. Shir Ido swore with revelation, righteous fury, betrayed 9 times, swore an oath to rise again. Shir Ido drew, loosed, fell, and lost. And
there's like the interpretation of that, it can go so many different ways.
It really can.
For me, I'm going to pull it up just so that way I can kind of keep my thoughts in order as I'm explaining them in relation to this lore entry itself. So to me, when it starts with the she swore an oath with revelation, righteous fury. So like that was like the her being the wrath. The queen's wrath there.
Yes, but I had pause on the word revelation. So Shir Ido swore with revelation, righteous fury. Revelation would imply to me that she discovered something to cause this righteous fury. And the fact that immediately after that we just have the word betrayed over and over again. On one hand, that could be read as like Shir discovered something that she had been betrayed.
Yeah.
On the other hand, because it is written in the way it's written with no spaces between betrayed and betrayed being written 9 times, is that the 9 stating that they were betrayed by Shir and that she was realizing that they were trying to seek revenge against her.
Holy shit.
I can very easily see that interpretation going either way. Either she discovered something and was betrayed and thus swore to rise again, or the 9 were betrayed and she discovered they were coming after her and then swore to rise again.
Holy shit. So I always... Holy shit, man. Dude, I've never even thought to think of it that way, but that's absolutely something that could be.
So, and to offer a little more support for that, we know that Mara gifted Skolas to the 9 back in D1 as part of the House of Wolves, and that the 9 kind of spited that gift and let Skolas free. Presumably to seek revenge against Mara. So there seems to be something of a strained relationship, at least at this time in Destiny's timeline, between Mara and the 9. Now we don't know the details of what that is.
Right.
But maybe this is it. Maybe Mara had Sheer do something that betrayed the Nine, and the Nine sought revenge against Sjur. And then additionally, when Mara tried to patch things by making an offering of Skolas, they're like, no, fuck you, and they let him go and said, go kill her.
So there's so much there, and especially coming back to the strange coins found on Shiraido's body, and like there's so much there that's like a part of everything, where the sworn oath to rise again. That to me is like either Shiraido literally willed herself into the ascendant plane, or if she was with those Ahamkara and she desired it, they basically wished her into rising again. But they're like, well, you got to find your own body. Like, you got to, Mara was able to reconstruct hers. You got to do the same thing. Like, good luck. Toland didn't quite have that luck, so screw him.
Toland is
Toland, man. We're gonna have a whole thing about Toland eventually, but like that whole deal there, like the Revelation Righteous Fury, like found something out that was so like either damning to Mara or damning to the Awoken people that she's just like, no, not just no, this is hell no. And that's what I took that as, and that's where like, and then the where Shiraido drew, and then fell, lost. To me that's like, because it doesn't say died, but the fact that lost is spaced out the way that right.
Yeah.
The fact that lost is spaced out like the way that the Nine have always talked to us. And it's very much written like it's from the perspective of the Nine.
Zone A captured.
Lost to them could mean death to us, but there could be like this lost in translation thing. Like, what does lost mean in this sense?
So I have some additional pieces to add to this puzzle.
Oh God.
As we've been talking, it's gotten me thinking a little bit. Now, it is stated in lore elsewhere, and I don't have it in front of me. I can't give a source at the moment, but I know it is stated elsewhere. I believe in the Emissary book, lore book, that the Nine have for a very long time been seeking a way to make themselves corporeal.
I'm calling.
Right.
At the moment, again, not going to get into all the Nine stuff, but at the moment they are kind of metaphysical beings. They do not have a physical body, that are tied to the fate of particular planetary bodies in the solar system. And they understand that if something were to happen to that planetary body, they would share its fate. And they don't want that. They want to be separate. They want to exist outside of that codependent relationship. And they have been trying very, very hard to find ways to accomplish that. That's actually what Xur originally was trying to understand how bodies work in our plane of existence, with the hopes of being able to make one for themselves, which they couldn't.
I mean, they came pretty close with Xur, so I can't...
ish, yeah.
The tentacles on the face, I feel like, what the hell? Like, to me, that like Xur's form and his being, the fact that he was like the first attempt at an emissary, it says a lot about the Nine and how they perceive us as mortal corporeal things. Like, the face to them is like this unknown, like there's no form to it.
The way that I perceived it was that the face of a mortal being is constantly changing to show emotion and to portray, to communicate, and they, with a very limited understanding of what that actually translates into, made a always moving face. And that's how he ended up with the tentacle monster. But let's not derail. because I had another
No,
point I was trying to make.
Real quick though, I like that. I like that idea. Okay,
So,
re-rail.
Re-rail. Pick up the train, put it back.
Put it on track 4. We made it to track 17. Put it back.
We know the Nine have been after a means of having a corporeal form. They state that the Guardians are kind of... The Guardians and their paracausal abilities are their only hope now that the... What did they say? Now that they are the only paracausal beings in the system after the death of the Wish Dragons. That tells me that previously the Nine were trying to use the Ahamkara wish magic to give themselves bodies. If they knew that Mara had access to an Ahamkara that she could make wishes to without the normal repercussions, and she intentionally kept that information away from them, that could be considered a betrayal to the Nine.
Holy shit.
If the Nine were trying to use Ahamkara, the natural born, or whatever Ahamkara were out in the world at this time, and, you know, Syr was hunting them, they could see that as a betrayal, as like Syr was an obstacle to their goals because she was killing off what they believed at the time was the one thing that could potentially give them a body. You know, they could see that as a betrayal. Perhaps the Nine were trying to use Mugen and Gunin for that purpose. Maybe the Nine had talked to these Ahamkara and drawn them away from the Dreaming City, hence becoming traitorous Ahamkara, and Syr was just there to hunt them down, and so they, you know, tried to prevent her from doing so. There's a lot of possibilities for how that could have shook down, but I feel like the fact that the Nine, Ahamkara, and Syr were all in the same place, that whatever happened can't be coincidence.
No, there's no way.
Especially when there's when the Nine were very specifically seeking Ahamkara magic at the time.
Holy cow.
So I'm thinking something along those lines is probably what happened that made things end up in the way they did.
Holy cow. Yeah, this is just mind-blowing. Literally explosion of minds.
So,
the lore is so good!
It really is. There's one last thing I think we should cover in regards to Syr Ido. And that is the dispelling or the reinterpreting of a very commonly held belief by the community.
Yes. This is it. This is the moment. All right. Everyone sit the hell down. Grab your popcorn. Because first off, we're going to have to read this lore entry start to finish. Like, that's going to happen. This is the moment. Back when I say back when, as if that was like years ago, when we started the podcast tonight, or at some point in time tonight, we were like, it's very important that we make this connection that Mara and Shiraido are wed. They are lovers. They are connected beings. They are partners, however you want to put it. There's a lore card that specifically deals with Lord Shaxx and the famous quote, "and the helmet stayed on." Okay? So, Myth, do you have that one pulled up?
I don't have it in its entirety, but I kept all of the relevant parts. So
okay.
It's a bit of an abridged version.
That's fine. Rock and roll with it, Myth.
So, this is on the Mark of the Hunt, the Titan class item from the Last Wish raid. Mara has set all of her plans in motion. There's nothing left for her to do but wait. And she pulls a pistol from her holster and cracks off some shots into the wish wall to make a wish to Riven. And Who appears in front of her but Lord Shax with a mug of coffee mid-conversation with somebody else, yelling something along the lines of, "And then they all died." And Mara slaps the mug out of his hand. It shatters on the floor. She shoved a weathered book in his face and says, "I told you there would come a time when I collect for the Reef Wars. Read this out loud." Shax says, "No one tells me what to do," grabbing the book and incinerating it in a bolt of striker lightning. "I can recite the Tempest by heart." And he did. Mara sat and listened. They stayed for a long time. The helmet stayed on. That's the bit that everybody knows.
Right.
Is this lore card. And they assume, based on this reading, that there was some kind of relations between Mara and Shax at this time. However, there is some additional context that turns this into potentially a much different entry. That context exists on everyone's favorite gun from a couple of years ago, the Recluse. In the Recluse, it is following Lord Shax. Shax is out in the reef. Not really sure why. He's patrolling of some sort. And just out of nowhere, gets hit with an arrow to the shoulder. And it reels back. There's so much power behind this arrow. He's like reels back, and then a second one comes and it hits him in the other shoulder, and he's goes back, and then a third one, it hits him in the thigh, and Shax, being Shax, his ghost is like, "Hey, do you want to transmit the heck out of here?" And he's like, "Oh no, they started this. I'm finishing it." And he's kind of limping through this area of the reef, and he's thinking to himself, "This was a ballista. They've shot me with a ballista." And the exact thing is, this was the work of a ballista, he supposed. Dark Age weaponry. Nothing else could hit so hard. And then he comes upon a figure. "You're trespassing on awoken territory, Guardian," she called to him.
Before that, he looks at her, and it's described that she is as tall as he was, if not taller. Her bow,
Yes.
And then in parentheses, like, just a bow? An ordinary bow? Was certainly taller. So it wasn't even a ballista that hit him. It was just sheer, just slap, slap, slap.
Yep, and again, just to show off how deadly and crazy she was with this weapon. Shax, a warlord of the Dark Age, had mistaken it for a ballista, which is a siege weapon, for attacking castles and other fortresses and armaments. So this figure approaches, says, "You are trespassing on awoken territory, Guardian. Declare yourself." Shax responds, "Who are you?" He asked, astounded. "I am the Queen's Wrath. Declare yourself. I will not ask again." She raised her bow, drawing it to its full capacity. He watched in amazement. It was just a bow, and she was just an ordinary awoken woman. And yet, "You are a Tempest," he replied. In the next instant, she killed him. It was the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
So the implication being made here is that Tempest was in fact the nickname given to Shir Ido by Lord Shax. And I believe she is also referred to as the Tempest by Mithrax, although I wasn't able to dig that one up in time. So, needless to say, it was a fairly well-known nickname of hers, was the Tempest.
Sure.
And if we take that interpretation and we apply it to the Mark of the Hunt, what has originally been established as, maybe some pre-battle stress relief, uh,
Make your enemies
is maybe in fact two people that were, close, one via romantic relationship and one via a friendship with Shir Ido, talking about their friend who had passed, which would have had a certain poetry to it for Mara, as she was inevitably, this is just, I think, the day before or days before, she was going to die by Oryx's hand intentionally.
Yep.
So, her wanting to reminisce about her, the good stories about her previous lover, before going off to do this, this dire and terrible thing would make a lot of sense.
And that's the way I saw it as well. Like it, to me, the whole they stayed quite a while and the helmet stayed on. Like they mean that in a literal sense. Like this wasn't a meeting of like pre-battle stress relief. No, this was a remembrance of Sheer, and because at that point in time, Sheer's been dead. She's gone.
Yes. For quite some time at that point.
Yep, Mara's preparing herself for that battle with Oryx, and she knows the outcome of it. She knows that she's going there to die, so she can slip past him into his ascendant plane, and start her waiting period of whatever game that she's trying to play. That I think we're going to see play out a lot this season. And definitely in the Witch Queen, I think we're going to see a lot of it play out there, whatever that game continues to be. So yeah, I definitely do not. I'm 100% under the belief that this was not a. We keep dancing around it. They didn't do it. They just sat and told stories of the Tempest being Sheer. And that's
the last line is not only the helmet stayed on. It is the helmet stayed on. And I think that's an important distinction between
absolutely
how it should be interpreted.
Absolutely.
And to another point, I don't know that Mara knows or thinks that Sheer is coming back.
Right.
And the reason I say that is this is more of the Shirochi dialogue for the pilgrimage missions. In the garden of the Eleusinia, there's a spot where there's that big tree on the bridge. Mm-hmm. It can take you to the bridge, and it will say, and Shirochi says that we are not allowed to carve statues for the living. So when someone goes missing, instead of a statue, we plant a tree. This tree was planted by Mara in remembrance of Sheer Ido.
Don't let your guard down.
So,
and to me, that's interesting that in what we would consider our known universe, being the Dream City part of the Reef, and therefore being part of the Soul System, planting a tree there, but there is no statue of Sheer Ido in our Soul universe. The only place that we find that statue is in that Shattered Realm, in the Shattered Throne.
And and when it's described, the creation of the Shattered Throne, then known as Eleusinia, it's described as a combination of efforts of Mara and Riven, and it's stated, and there she finally sculpted a statue for Sheer Ido, which taking those two pieces together, I would interpret as before Sheer's body was found, or even after Sheer's body was found, the tree was there.
Absolutely.
Because on some level, Mara didn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
And when
I mean, who could blame her?
That's very human. That's a very
like,
human characteristic.
Not even human. That's an awoken characteristic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's say their people have a very different viewpoint on death than a lot of the other races in the Destiny universe.
Absolutely.
But reading that pilgrimage dialogue, and then the dialogue for the Shattered Throne, and there she finally sculpted a statue for Sure Ido, almost makes it seem like that's the moment where she has accepted that Sheer is dead. Like that was a moment of she doesn't think she's coming back anymore. Which makes me wonder, because it is through that very statue that Sheer tells us that she is going to find a way home. That Mara may not know that Sheer is still out there in some form. She may truly think that she is,
which would just
dead
be
and
like
gone.
if she shows up in this season. I mean, I think we're going to see if she does show up in this season, and obviously it'll be with Mara, however that is. And again, this is not like we've data mined any of this or anything. This is just us speculating that Sheer would come back this season, or should come back this season, with all the lore points that we're looking at here, and the season lost being centered around Mara. When that does happen, and I say when,
and you just made this connection. Season of the Lost. Lost is the last word in the Wish
That's what I'm getting at. That's exactly what I'm getting at. When Shirochi reappears in front of Mara, I think we're going to have an insanely emotional scene there.
God damn it.
Oh, damn it. I did it. I did the whole thing without doing it once. Damn it. When Sheer Ido, damn it. I was doing good. I was so good about it the entire time.
I was so impressed.
Damn it. Damn it. When Sheer Ido finally does come back to us and comes back to Mara, because I truly think that's what Mara is using the Techians for. I think that Mara might actually know that Shiro's out there somewhere, and she wants to use the Techians to create ley line connections to bring her back.
Okay.
That's
a very
that's what I
interesting
think.
idea.
Because so and we talked about this at one point in time, and I'm gonna, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week, and I'm gonna kind of bring it back into this one this week, just because the Wishender bow is so integral to Sheer Ido. So when we get this bow in game, we come back to the Dreaming City and we find these things. We don't know what they are until we shoot one of them with the bow called the Wish Ender. When we shoot it, it's a corrupted. It's described as a corrupted egg, and there's a triumph associated called corrupted omelet, which states destroy all 40 corrupted eggs. These eggs, we believe to be, or at least we now believe them to be, the children of Riven in a taken form. So post taken Riven having laid eggs that are corrupted because of the taken corruption, and we are literally ending the wishes of those Ahamkaras, those unborn Ahamkaras.
Which I think we have even more credibility for that theory now, knowing that Sheer was described as a hunter of traitorous Ahamkara, and like it's got to be
her bow is the Wish Ender. Like, it is named the Wish Ender. She was the hunter of traitor Ahamkara. Like that's everything there. Just it keeps threading itself back into the same weave here. And so we also know that in Mara's chambers room right now, you can go to her chambers room and as soon as you enter, it's to the right. There's a little balcony section. You jump up on there, and then you kind of jump up a little bit and look through the gates. There is a what appears to be a corrupted Ahamkara egg. And I say appears to be corrupted because, and this is kind of like, we try to draw as many conclusions as we can, but obviously none of us know the full story of anything. We say it's a corrupted egg because it looks like what we shot, but we have never seen, we as the player have never seen a non-corrupted egg, so we don't know if the look of the egg is changed when it is corrupted, or if that's just how Ahamkara eggs look. If it's that black and white taken looking essence there. Now, the black and white, absolutely, as far as like for the storytellers of Destiny and the developers of Bungie and all that, to them to relay some sort of information to us, the player, they're trying to make that. I feel like they're trying to make that connection there, right? So all the Taken have the same look. They're that black and white kind of shimmery, half black, half white, very much looking like that. The corrupted eggs that we destroyed, as well as that last egg that's sitting in her chambers.
Yep.
That to me, that says a lot. Like we don't know how much power that thing has. We don't know if Mara's wish is to get Sheer Idol back. Like the one time Mara had a desire was with Sheer. I think that is so important to keep in mind going forward with this season of The Lost.
So I'm gonna spin another theory here.
Alrighty.
That doesn't necessarily negate yours, but might be how it happens.
Okay.
So I agree. The one time Mara has ever wanted for anything was in regards to Sheer and like a continued relationship with her. If we follow the assumption, so I'm gonna say let's assume that Mara truly does think she's dead and gone, and like her building the statue was her accepting Sheer's demise as being dead. And that Mara is not factoring Sheer into any of her future plans. What if, although Mara is very much under the impression Sheer is not around anymore, and Sheer truly is in the Ascendant Realm, floating around somewhere.
Oh shit.
That would be a pretty big bargaining chip for Savathun.
Oh
and
shit.
Savathun is very accustomed to the Ascendant Realm, has built her own throne world, as you know, has her siblings, and we know that Savathun doesn't die at the end of this season.
Oh shit.
I could very easily see Savathun going, "Thanks for getting rid of my worm. I know you want to kill me, but by the way, I have like the one person you actually care about. So maybe don't."
Held prisoner or something. Holy shit. Alright. Damn it. Why do you always come up with the cooler fucking theories? Damn
well,
it.
no, this would lead in to that Ahamkara egg if Ahamkara can do some form of wish magic even in a unhatched state. Like this is the perfect Ahamkara monkey paw wish of,
it is.
You know, oh, you want to be reunited with Sheer. Okay, but it's as a prisoner to Savathun.
Boom.
Figure that out.
Boom. Figure that out. I like that. To me, that's exactly what the Ahamkara do. As soon as they make that wish, yeah, figure that out, dumbass. Like, it sucks to suck, don't it?
Oh.
Ahamkaras are little shits, man.
Or okay, let's roll it back even more. I just had this thought.
Oh damn.
Or
all right, last theory of the night.
Or we know that Riven was present when Sheer and Mara had their discussion of devotion for each other, and that was the one and only time they've ever mentioned Riven feeding off of Mara. What if the last wish is that wish from so many years ago, and the
Oh
she
shit.
is Mara wishing for Sheer, and that is what has caused everything up till this point in order for Savathun to use her as a bargaining chip.
God damn it. Why do you come up with all the cooler theories? I get this really cool idea, and then like you come up with like this grander one, and I'm like, well, shit, that makes sense too. Why can't it be that? Like,
Well, why not both?
what?
Porque los dos.
Porque los dos. All right. Well, on that note, I think we're gonna end this stream tonight. We've definitely covered a lot in 2 hours, 2 hours plus tonight. Man, holy shit, man, this is so many more questions than answers tonight, and so many more theories and threads to be intertwined into all these different stories that we've been telling over the last few weeks, and that we're going to continue to tell for the unforeseeable future. Like, I'll tell these, I'll have myths. I'll keep my helmet on every night that Myth tells me a story. So, in typical fashion here, I do like to throw some thanks out. As always, thanks to thanks to our producer, Eclipse, for streaming these things and joining us here on these nightly journeys. If for no other reason, just to have something to listen to while he is farming his bounties and doing the true end game of Destiny, which is Destiny.
No problem.
Thank you to thank you to my co-host, Myth. This thing wouldn't have materialized and existed without you. I absolutely love these journeys that we go on, and I love these discussions that we have. These really deep thoughts and theories, and trying to piece everything together that the entire Destiny community truly is trying to do. I think all at once, and for us to have our own little throne world, our own little ascendant plane, our own little pocket universe where we're doing this. Yeah, I'm absolutely grateful for that. Of course, thank you to everyone that stopped in. I know Alpha was in here for a little while. I know he'll catch the rest of it later. I'm sure there's tons more people watching tonight, and I know Big Scotty and Tina Italiano and even Keaston, like I know they listen to it throughout the week. So yeah, this was a fantastic journey through the life of, I say the life of as if it's over, like we don't know, of Shiraido. I mean Shirachi. No, Shiraido. I made it the whole night. I was so proud of myself. One mistake. Damn it. All right. Yeah. So with that, Myth, do you have anything?
No. I think you said it all pretty well. Always fun to have an excuse to do some lore diving and have a discussion like this, and hopefully others can enjoy it as well. So.
Yeah, it's always super interesting.
Awesome. Well, from us, the lore nerds, to all of you Guardians out there, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week.
All right, take it easy.
All right.
Together, nothing can stop you.
All bueno over there.